Hi, welcome to the last teaching video for rational functions and relations. We're going to focus on applications of this function, work and mixture. So how do I use the least common multiple to help me solve work and mixture problems? Primarily work. The mixture problems look a little bit different, and it doesn't even feel like we're doing a rational function, but we are. Work problems are where two people, or you could have two pieces of machinery, you could have two devices, you could have two different processes, but each of them complete a task in a different amount of time. So they do the same task, but it takes them a different amount of time to complete it. So if you're given the individual times that they complete the task, then you can calculate the time it would take if they work together. And we use the formula, we call it the work formula, 1 over A, and A is the amount of time for that first person, that first machine, that first whatever to complete the task, plus 1 over B. B is the amount of time for the second person or the second machine or the second thing or the second process, okay? And then equals 1 over T. T is the amount of time they work together, and that's what we're looking to find is T. So the reason this is a rational function is underlying this whole thing is, think about it, if it takes someone 5 hours to complete a job, to mow the lawn, to vacuum the house, all right? How much of that job is completed in just 1 hour? Well, if 5 hours is the total, then 1/5 of the job would be done in 1 hour, right? So that's the whole premise behind work problems, okay? So when we do a work problem, we're going to write down the formula. Every time we write down the formula, it helps us remember it, so it is a good thing to do. You're going to plug in the given values. We're going to find the least common denominator by finding the least common multiple of those terms in the denominator. We're going to simplify, solve, and check just to make sure we don't have anything extraneous hanging on there. Here's our first example. Manuel and Stephen have a lawn care business, and for one property that they service, Manuel can do it alone in 4 hours, but it takes Stephen 5.5 hours. So how long will it take if they mow together? So the first thing you want to do is you want to write the formula 1 over A plus 1 over B equals 1 over T, okay? So then what we're going to do is we're going to plug in the values. Well, let A be what Manuel can do it in, and that's 4 hours. Let B be what Stephen can do it in, and that's 5.5 hours. So now we're going to plug in 1 over 4 plus 1 over 5.5 equals 1 over T. All right, now we have to clear the denominator by multiplying by the least common multiple. So here's our least common multiple, 4 times 5.5 times T, okay? And so if we do that for every single term, we would have 4 times 5.5 times T, and then 4 times 5.5 times T, and then 4 times 5.5 times T. We can see that here the 4's cancel, so I get 5.5 T. And here the 5.5's cancel plus 4T. And here the T's cancel, so I get 22. And now I'm going to solve. So I get 9.5 T is equal to 22. T is equal to 2.32 hours. They can mow it in 2.32 hours if they do it together. All right. Here's another example. A pipe can fill a 22,000 gallon pool in 36 hours. Another pipe can fill it in 28 hours. How much time will it take if they're pumping together? So why don't you answer the video question, write the formula, and plug in the values to that formula and find the least common multiple. All right, so my formula is just 1 over A plus 1 over B equals 1 over T. The values that I'm going to plug in are 1 over, well, A is 36 and B is equal to 28. I don't know what T is, so I have 1 over 36 plus 1 over 28 equals 1 over T. And then to clear the denominator, I have to multiply everything by the common multiple of 36 times 28 times T. So when I multiply this first term, my 36's are going to cancel out and I get 28T. When I multiply the second term, my 28's are going to cancel out, so I get 36T. And then my last term, my T's are going to cancel out and I get 1,008. That's what it means to clear that denominator. Multiply everything through by the least common multiple, okay, of the denominator. Now I'm going to simplify and I get 64T is equal to 1,008, and 1,008 divided by 64, I get 15 3/4 hours. Okay. All right. Last example here. A&O Printing Company has a Rush Digital print job. Together, so that's my T, machine A and B can print the job in 10 hours. So this is going to be T. Machine A prints it in 14 hours, but it's broken. How long will it take machine B to print? So we're going to, why don't you go ahead and answer the video question, write the formula, plug in the values, find the least common multiple, and clear the denominator. Okay, so my formula is 1 over A plus 1 over B equals 1 over T. This one's a little bit different because I know my together, so I know that T is equal to 10 and A is equal to 14 and B is what I don't know. Right, so I'm going to plug in 1 over 14 plus 1 over B equals 1 over 10. And to clear the denominator, my least common multiple is going to be 14 times 10 times T. So in my first term here, my 14s will cancel, so I will get 10T plus, this is a B, oh sorry, this is not, need to erase, this is not a T, it's a B, sorry, it's a B, okay? So my first term, I'm going to get 10B. And then my B's are going to cancel, so I'm going to get 140. And then this last term, my 10s are going to cancel, so I'm going to get 14B. I'm going to move my B's over to the right. So I get 140 is equal to 4B. And so when I solve that, I get 35 is equal to B, so 35 hours. Okay. Why don't you try the video question and write down what you did so that if you get it wrong, you can talk to me about it tomorrow. All right, now we're going to move on to the mixture problems. And mixture problems are situations where you have like two different solutions that are going to be combined to make a third solution. Two different ingredients are going to be combined to make a third type of ingredient. two bank accounts are going to be combined to find out how much money is earned after a certain amount of time. Okay, so there are lots of different formulas for this. I like to use the formula that talks about you take the first amount times its rate plus the second amount times its rate. It's kind of like you're doing a weighted average equals the sum of the first and the second times that final rate. The thing you have to remember is that the rates all have to be done in decimal, 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 decimal. Okay, make sure that you match the correct amount with the correct rate. Okay, and then we can solve for any of those pieces. We could solve for A1, R1, A2, R2, RF. Okay, we can solve for any of those pieces. Okay. All right, so Spencer needs a 30% acid solution, but in her lab she only has a 15% solution and a 50% acid solution. So if she uses 25 milliliters of the 50% solution, how much of the 15% solution does she need to use to reach her 30% solution? So you have to identify amounts versus rates, okay? So 25 is an amount. This is an amount, okay? That's the only amount that we know. 50 is a rate. 15 is a rate. 30 is a rate, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We know that the first amount, A1, is equal to 25, and we know R1 is equal to 0.50. Okay? That's 0.50. I don't know what amount 2 is, but I know that its rate or its percentage is equal to 0.15. And then my total is 25 plus the second amount. I know that I have to add those two together, and that my final rate is equal to 30%. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to plug in, I'm going to distribute, simplify, and go from there. Okay, so here's where I'm plugging in. So I have 25 times 0.8 plus, I don't know what A2 is, so I'm just going to leave it as A2 times 0.15 equals A1 plus A2. Well, that's just 25 plus A2. I don't know what A2 is yet. Times 0.3. And now I'm going to distribute. So 25 times 0.8 is 12. Oh, sorry, this should be 0.5. Sorry. I don't know where I got 0.8. So this is 12.5 plus 0.15 A2 is equal to 0.3 times 25. Well, that's 7.5 plus 0.3 A2. Okay. Trying to make dots. It's difficult. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to move my 7.5 to the left, subtract it. That gives me 5 plus 0.15 A2 is equal to 0.3 A2. Now I'm going to subtract my 0.15 A2. So that gives me 5 is equal to 0.15 A2 when I subtract those. So that means the amount of 15% is 33 1/3 milliliters of A2 of my 15% solution. Okay. All right, Toby has 21.3 ounces of an 80% brine solution, that's a salt solution, and 16 ounces of a 10% salt solution. What's the percentage of the final solution? This one is also brine or salt. What's the final percentage when he mixes them together? You're just taking a weighted average of those. So A1 is equal to 21.3. R1 is equal to, oh, there's where I got the 80.80. A2 is equal to 16. R2 is equal to 10. And A1 plus A2 well, that's 37.3 ounces. And RF, that's what I'm looking for. That's my question mark. So let's just plug in. So I have 21.3 times 0.8 plus 16 times 0.10 equals 37.3 times RF. I don't know what RF is. That's what I'm trying to find. So when I multiply these out, I get and add them together, I get 18.64 is equal to 37.3 times my final rate. And when I divide that, I get 50.50. Or we could write it as a 50% brine solution. Okay. Now this is a type of mixture problem where it actually uses ingredients and cost per ingredient. So you could see a lot of businesses using this if you're a coffee house, if you are a person who sells mixtures of nuts, mixtures of different candies. Okay, so it says 1 ounce of bleach flour costs $8 per ounce, is combined with 5 ounces of unbleached flour, which costs $2 per ounce. Find the cost per ounce of the mixture. So here's what you have to understand, that the R's, the rates, this is a rate, $8 per ounce. This is a rate, $2 per ounce. When you go to the gas station, you pay $2.09 per gallon. That is a rate, okay? We just don't have to take the percent and convert it to a decimal. This is already a decimal. It's 8.00. It's 2.00, okay? So the amount for the 8 ounce is 1 times 8 plus the amount of the second type of flour is 5, and its cost is $2 per ounce, is equal to 1 plus 5 times the final cost per ounce. So I get 8 plus 10 is equal to 6 RF. 18 divided by 6 is equal to RF. So my final cost per ounce when I blend those two together in that combination is $3 per ounce. All right. So why don't you try the video question, and if you get it wrong, write it down so that you can show me what you did and I can help you figure out what happened. This will be our assignment. Thank you for listening to my instruction video. I'll see you tomorrow.